And from that, we train machine learning to see what's your intent. And then we also have payment information to feed closed loop that data. So we see the patterns of store visits ending up with purchases and store visits that do not end up.
Right, I see. So the tracking is through location services on your mobile device, or how are you still tracking the person's flow?
So, for example, we're an SDK in an app. The location services is not good enough because it's GPS plus some triangulation, but it's not accurate. So within a mall, there might be 200 stores. The location you get from Apple or Android, it just tells you you're in a mall. We have the technology to say you're in the third floor, you're in this corridor, or you spend 5 minutes in a Leeds. That's the deep tech we have.
Is there any technical restriction on the data collection process? Like if you turn on, like airplane mode, like turn off your phone, you can't collect anymore? Or like this?
It's all legal and ethical. So if you turn off location permission, of course we don't, and we can't. But if you opt in, then we can. So regardless of any combination of if you turn on Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, or turn off, we calibrate all through them, so we can.
Hi. If I understand how it works, so let's take a use case. I enter a mall. There are different shops. Let's say I pass through Adidas and then Shop of Nike and Apple.
Yeah.
Those three brands that you empower have the visibility of where I was and what I did, and they can send in real time. They can incentivize me in real time to purchase something. Am I correct till now?
If we're in Nike's app or so forth, but we're usually in much bigger brands like banks or payment platforms or multi-brand loyalty apps that can work with any of them. So they have hundreds of deals if you open up the app and scroll through, but nobody scrolls through those deals. Only if you get it at the right time and location, you will be able to use it. And it's a utility for you because you get the deal. It's a utility for the brand because they get good traffic. And it's a utility for the app because they have a good relationship with that merchant. For example, the credit card, if you use Chase, they make money. If you use Bank of America, Chase doesn't make any money.
So is it a passive or active? I mean, am I getting push notifications?
Push notifications, yes.
Okay, and in such case, am I not being spammed every time I pass through your business? And how do you regulate this business logic?
That's the beauty. So if you're Nike, you can only put cameras or beacons to your store, and 99% of the time you're blind because it's outside. And the logic they do is, whoever I see, let me spam them. But us, we can see the whole pattern and see who would respond to these kind of messages based on their past behavior. So we are very cognizant about sending high conversion rate push notifications. So we have lookalike customer and segmentation and prediction models to help the business so they don't spam.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. I think we're out of time. Happy to get feedback.
Yeah. First of all, this is really interesting stuff. It's a huge problem. By the way, so like Visa pays Costco millions of dollars, so they know what the sales attribution is. A few other sort of tangents that I've seen in this space is people have been trying to do this with computer vision, but there's no attribution to purchases. So it would be interesting, and I'm actually curious to learn a little bit more. Maybe we can talk offline.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting problem, and you guys like approach it from a very novel angle. And I'm not expert on this, but I think it's really cool. If you guys can talk more about like the technical part of it, I'll be interested in it. So best of luck.
I would be interested to know about results, marketing, success cases, etc.
It seems really interesting, but I would like some more information regarding the data you collect and the data you share. Because still, you get some sensitive data regarding my transactions. things like that. Okay, you might not know me, but you know that this mobile phone has used a credit card, something, done the transaction. Since then, I think it's quite innovative, so good luck.
Thank you.
So I actually remember a case study that we had in Kareem, that we tried to target people based on geographical location, which we called geofencing. And to geofence to the level of a store is very, very difficult. So I know you're solving a very big problem here, but I don't understand the use cases for it. But I'm not saying it works or it doesn't work. I just don't understand it. But I know that you're solving a big problem by geofencing to the store level.
I'll be happy to talk after this. Thank you.
Next up, we have Berkeley, and please welcome its CEO, Austin Clark.
Thank you very much. All right, thank you guys for the opportunity. We're building a two-sided online education marketplace. Problem is, online education is highly fragmented. According to Reuters, only the top players control only 8% of the market, with the rest of the 92% being small institutions, private tutoring institutions, and etc. By way of illustration, if you wanted to study online something about Italian cooking or astronomy, I'd wager that most of you would probably do a Google search rather than going to a specific site. However, in different other market segments, that's not the case. For example, renting an apartment overseas for a month or taking a ride share. So this is why we're building Euryclid, the first global learning arena. It's a cross between an online education marketplace and a social network. So by online education marketplace, we're offering one-on-one live courses and group lessons, one-on-one and group live lessons, online courses, and online resources. So why a social network? Because education is fundamentally social. Learning outcomes are always improved when you can share, discuss, debate different topics with others. By way of an example, it would be madness to think that you could do a law degree sitting in your bedroom studying alone. And online education should be no different. Furthermore, if you look at the three big segments, business, personal, and education, there's an incumbent social network for business and for social, but there isn't for education. We'd like to fill that space. So the learning marketplace I've already talked about, and so our solution, as I said, Euryclid. I'd like to talk to you a bit about our learning community. We've got a couple of social features that I'm particularly proud of. Our knowledge exchange, it's just like a study group that you would see in schools and universities all over the world, where kids can, swat for their SATs, practice a language exchange. But unlike schools and universities, you're not restricted by your geographical location and who you know. Likewise, we've got a knowledge feed. It's just like a news feed, but information is passed to the user based on specific interests, and it's a way that course providers and tutors can engage with their students and incentivize them to take lessons. As far as where the company is, we've spent 2 years developing the platform. We're going to spend the next 6 months raising our seed capital round of $2 million. And after that point, in the latter half of 2020, we're going to deploy the capital into our initial target markets.
So I've already spent 1.5 million USD of my own money today. The platform is already functioning to a very high standard. We've built out the tutor marketplace with around 7,000 users, 400 one-on-one lessons have taken places. We have 600 live tutors. We've just released our knowledge exchange, and our future platforms will be the knowledge feed, group lessons, courses, and a mobile app.
The seed capital, as I mentioned, would be $2 million.
The main destination for the capital will be marketing, platform refinements, and also working capital reserve. Thanks. We have a really impressive team. Austin is founder and CEO. He's originally from New Zealand, Auckland, New Zealand, where he has a successful property development company. Right now, he has about $100 million in his portfolio in Auckland. But he's decided to come to San Francisco to launch the education company, Eurekley. We also have Anna Batista, who's over here. She's the head of operations and is deeply involved in the development. And myself, my background is investor relations and also business development. Should we start? Thank you very much.
The platform that I use right now is called Class Central. Like I use that to see their ranking for like all the classes that I'm interested in. How are you guys like different from them? Like what's your competitive advantage over them?
Well, the thesis is that, again, online education is fundamentally social. There's a number of different competitors in the space. You know, for courses, you've got the likes of Udemy, Udacity, Coursera, and for live lessons, especially for language learning, you've got the likes of Preply, italki, Take Lessons. The difference is that we have built our platform to be like a social network, so you can interact with your other, people on the platform based on your educational interests. And we believe that increased engagement will be what brings people to the site, engages the network effect, and gives them better learning outcomes.
Right. A follow-up question: can you talk more about like your community building strategy for like online learning, like community? Because like time difference and language difference, it's a lot to account for.
Yeah. Okay. So what made me decide to build this platform was I'm passionate about learning languages. I've got into it rather late in life, but I speak intermediate level Mandarin and Russian. And I started learning languages on a website called italki, which is fundamentally, it's somewhat similar, but it's only focused on language learning and one-on-one lessons, not on courses or anything else. Now, the thing that engages users on italki is the fact that they have this community, the language exchange program, and the fact that you can meet each other on the site based on your similar learning interests. So that proved to me that the thesis was true, and in fact that's the reason my girlfriend and my partner are together. We met on the site italki. She wanted to practice her English, me my Russian. Obviously I prefer to learn with her than Sergei Forty plays the drums, but the fact that it brought us together showed me how real the social interactions sort of make a difference for learning.
That's good. Thank you.
No problem.
I love the vision. I admire you for the ambition. What worries me a bit is the social network part. I think it's really difficult building a new social network. You need a lot of branding capabilities, a lot of budget to position yourself and compete with existing ones, despite the fact that maybe only LinkedIn would be a social network that would have something to do with education, since they propose education online. So I'm worried about that part, the social network part.
I think that's a very fair comment. It's definitely the hardest thing I've done. As I said, I've sunk 1.5 USD of my own capital into it. Obviously, the challenges are boiling the ocean. We want, the vision at the end state is that's the place you go for education. It's a multi-billion-dollar idea. Of course, the challenge is boiling the ocean, and how do you get that market penetration? It's the go-to-market strategy is key. It's difficult, but we're committed to it.
I actually agree with you, and I think I would avoid using the term social network because it scares investors. But it's not necessarily like a social network platform, but it is social learning in a way, right?
Mm.
I had it in my resolution this year to learn French, and I immediately started looking for places where I can learn from other people, and I can get to know other people who speak French and can teach me French. And to me, that is the best way to learn.
How's your French?
I haven't started. I remember when I said I put it in my resolution. Who does that?
Well, you signed up on a language exchange.
That's where plans die. But I think the social aspect is very important.
Yeah, keeps you socialized.
Well, when it comes to, for instance, to learning languages, you can practice your language. You're told. For me, I like to practice Mandarin with somebody that wants to practice their English and vice versa. And obviously, when you're on a site where you can engage with others, then you'll be incentivized to potentially take a lesser course because you're engaged on that site. You want to keep coming back.
Thank you.
Oh.
Yeah, I really like the idea of like building a community, like a learning community, because I'm really into like this kind of stuff, and there's might be like value in exploring like offline like events, I guess, like opportunities, because I feel like offline learning exchange, learning experience exchange, that's kind of irreplaceable, so that's why I
Okay. Great feedback.
Cool.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I love it. I will definitely connect and deepen.
I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, I really find that really fantastic because it gives the opportunity to everyone to get knowledge, to exchange information and experience, so and it can be used from everyone. So good luck with that.
Thank you so much.
All the best.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah, same here. Like I said, I love the social aspect of it, but with my French project, that never saw the light. I did some research and I found multiple websites and multiple apps actually that offer similar things. I'm sure you've done your research and there must be a competitive edge with you. There's no time to explain it, but I wish you all the best.
It's very kind.
Yeah.
Thank you all for your time.
Our next pitching company will be Tide Foundation, and its CEO Isaac Penikov.
Thank you. Much appreciated. So, we'll start again. Tide is removing the liability that consumer-facing businesses acquire when they get your personal data. Now, as of June 2018, a personal data breach is going to cost a business anywhere between $100 to $700 per record. So even a small to medium-sized enterprise with 1 million records is facing a $100 million to a $700 million penalty. That's an extinction level event for most businesses. And yet, we have personal data breaches every single day. So why is that happening? It's happening because the value of your personal data is skyrocketing. And at the same time, more and more and more cyber attacks are designed to steal that data from the businesses that you've entrusted it to. And so what's the industry doing about it? Well, most CISOs are running around scared shitless and literally throwing money at every type of security that's out there, so that if and when they do get breached, they can come back to the regulators and say, I took this seriously, I went ahead and I made the investments that are necessary. But the problem is that most of these security solutions have the same fundamental premise in them. We're going to lock down the data, we're going to encrypt it. And when we encrypt it, we're going to have a decryption key. And that decryption key I'm going to give to my developers, to my automated workflows. In fact, I'm going to hold that decryption key. And because I hold that decryption key, I am also the single biggest point of failure. I'm not removing this liability, I'm just creating more friction in data portability. Until today. Because what Tide has developed is the ability for a consumer to engage with a business and for their data to be encrypted in transit, to arrive encrypted at the business, and the decryption key to rest with a zero trust autonomous entity which enables an interaction between the business and the consumer and the management of those decryption keys in a frictionless UX environment. So when the business needs to decrypt your data, it hits an API call which checks against the terms that you have agreed to engage with that business. Think your T's and C's. And if those conditions are met, that zero trust entity issues a one-time decryption key to the business, which allows it to decrypt that data field, gets it re-encrypted. So you have effectively a virtual power of attorney for yourself. For the business, it removes the liability of holding personal data. It means that they are mathematically protected against a mass personal data breach. It also means that the right to be forgotten, which is incredibly difficult to implement inside a business, is now migrated to the consumer. If the consumer no longer wants the business to remember them, they simply take the keys, metaphorically, and throw them in the bay. And when they do, that business can no longer decrypt their data. We are post-patent, post-demonstratable tech, post-proof of concept, and in the middle of pilots. Thank you. I got 12 seconds, but I'll take questions.
Who's your client?
That's my team. Thank you very much. That's a little surprise from them. So,
Who is,
you got a last minute deck change. Sorry.
please? Who is the client?
Our clients are the vendors.
The business?
A business. That's right.
And which is the cost?
We are a freemium model, so we will charge you per record, and we'll start off with free, and we'll go to Zed.
I have 15 million policyholders active.
Yeah.
Which will be
You want to talk to me?
which will be the cost?
I'd rather not answer that.
Because my cyber attack policy liability costs $150,000 US dollars. So you have to have a better cost on that.
I remove that liability for you.
It can, I'm obligated by the law to have it.
Yes. So,
I will pay, I will give this.
I have no doubt you will.
Will be kept, I will
Yeah.
have to pay that,
Yeah.
whatever you do.
Unless the insurance policy, which is a conversation that we are having with the insurance policy themselves, are able to come to the insurance policy can come to you and say, if you remove your liability, your premium goes from 150 to X, because we remove the liability also from the insurance company.
That's why, this is where I want.
So-
I'm an insurance person.
Yes.
This is a question out of ignorance. So for the quote-unquote CCPA compliant
Yes.
sort of databases, if you do just like the normal encryption, where like you showed the example where everyone has the key, is that quote-unquote CCPA compliant?
It depends. Just because you encrypted something doesn't mean that you're compliant with legislation. You also need to be compliant in terms of your processes and your systems within the business. So you may encrypt it, and then you may be negligent in the way that the key is actually handled internally, in which case you still breached. But it's only going to happen when you get breached. In our scenario, even if you get breached, there is no publicly or personally identifiable information that can get out because you don't have it to begin with.
Right. So for your sales cycle, are you targeting the people that know that they don't have a compliant solution, or the ones that believe that they're safe but maybe not?
Yeah, that's a great question. We're targeting two separate areas in simultaneously. Your small to medium-sized startups. In fact, any of the investors, your portfolio companies have a problem, and the VCs that we talk to would readily refer us to their portfolio companies because they can't get growth funding unless they solve the liability issue. Equally, we've partnered with KPMG and PwC as system integrators. They put us in touch with enterprise, but only when that enterprise is going through a privacy compliance project. Because at that stage, the enterprise is on the operating table. For us to introduce tight technologies like changing an engine mount when the engine's already out.
I have a question. I don't know if it will be like a real problem at all, though. I'm just curious. So if one of our clients already have like a bunch of data stored on their cloud or whatever, and then they also want to like deploy some data on your on a chain, is there any like kind of like way that you can make this to like data like interact, like is it through like an Oracle or something like that?
Tide actually does not touch the data. So our zero trust custodian layer just is a key management. The data remains with the business. The classification remains with the business. Tide never touches the data. So we remove the friction of the data portability because we decouple the personal information from the metrics.
Thank you.
Feedback.
I think that you really have something here. We will stay in touch.
Yes. Hi, Isaac.
Hi.
So, to be honest, I'm not smart enough to understand this or judge the product. But I think you explained it very well with the part three. I know data is important. We've had a data breach that cost us millions and big embarrassment to international media. So I'm a bit still traumatized by that experience. And while listening to your presentation, I'm remembering the trauma. All I can say that I understand the pain and I know this is very important, but I honestly have no idea how these things work, so I can't judge the product.
Yes.
But all the best, thank you.
Thank you.
No, I think it's interesting. I'm trying to do diligence right now, but we can talk after.
Might take a while.
I think it's really cool, and I can definitely see like very bright future in front of you guys. And I just want to extend an invitation to you because I'm really close with the Blockchain at Berkeley Club, and
Okay,
we're interested
yeah.
in invite you to
Yeah.
give a tech talk.
Yeah, we'd love to do that.
I deeply apologize. I missed part of the presentation due to an unexpected yet forecasted biological pressure.
He's our stand-up comedian.
I do understand the value proposition. From the little I heard, it sounds promising. So I'd love to.
Thank you. Any questions from the audience? No. Thanks for having me, guys.
Who's welcome next? Abhidya Avinash and his company Zuriel.
Hi, my name is Vegas Johnny, and we're here to talk to you about our product Zuriel.
Yep. So we're a group of high schoolers that from San Jose, and we're trying to close the funding gap in public school education. So the problem that we're trying to address is school underfunding. There's like three main facets that we're trying to talk about right now, which is lack of student motivation, low teacher pay, and lack of school resources to teach students with.
The solution to this problem is Zuriel. So the solution to this is converting business donations and student effort into school funding. So this is what funding would look like in a Zuriel world. So first you would have the incentive for funding, which are the students. And the source of funding, which currently is the government, but in our Zuriel world we also have local businesses. And the recipient of the funding would always be the schools. So the real difference between this and what's happening today is that we've added businesses into the mix, the local businesses that are in the community and would like to see the education quality in that community increase.
So the way our product works is that we have these businesses that create a pool of pledges to these schools. So these are businesses that are interested in supporting their community. As students do problems on our platform, they end up unlocking money from those businesses that then gets sent to the school. So student effort directly correlates to this money being unlocked. Schools are then able to reinvest that money into the students. So we have incentive schemes in place for all three members of the Zuriel ecosystem. In terms of businesses, school donations are tax deductible, and you also get to see a direct correlation between student effort and your donations being unlocked. You also get to do employment listings on our platform. With students, there's a study tool, which means that you can use that for that. And you also get to earn rewards because we gamified the system, things like points and point reward systems. For schools, this one's pretty obvious. This is the source, or this is the recipient of money, which means that they can get needed supplies and pay teachers more. So in terms of features, we've done things like include a virtual currency in order to gamify the system. We have things like yeah. So you can see like classroom functionality in terms of like teachers being able to assign work to students and use like and assign their own problem sets. So teachers are able to make their own questions, and because of that, they can like tailor their learning to their specific students. And finally, you're going to see that businesses are going to be able to do employment listings, which means that motivated students are going to be able to connect to these local businesses that are funding their schools.
The market size is potentially massive, as there are nearly like 132,000 public schools in America, which are collectively $19 billion underfunded. So this is not like a small problem, and it's a pretty well-known problem in America too. That's why there's so many solutions outside of schools to try to educate people, because the schools themselves aren't doing very well, which is something we saw in our own community. So we come from a good school, but schools that are very close to us are much worse just because of the lack of funding they receive. And this solution is also great because internet access is becoming more common, particularly in the United States. So making this much more viable for kids to complete their homework over our platform. We've received validation. We won funding at the Canton Social Impact Challenge, $6,000 there. We've spoken at multiple Silicon Valley conferences. We have customer interest. We've launched in our school with about 133 users, and in about 5 classrooms where it's used for assignments, tests, quizzes, and practice tests before big unit tests, where students can get in a field of problems. We're featured in the keynote as well. So the competition for us is basically that the 3 Google Classroom, Edmodo, and subject-specific things like Study Spanish, because these platforms really take up teachers' time. Teachers get frustrated using all these different platforms and coordinating between them, so that's our real issue. But we see our advantage as we're not really competing with them. We're a completely different entity altogether. We're trying to basically earn the school money through the students' effort, and that's something that's entirely novel in itself.
Questions? Congratulations for the initiative. Is the platform already live? Do you have schools and businesses that are already participating? What is the success rate?
So the platform is live. This is just a picture of the homepage, but there is something behind this. So we have about, as I said, 133 students just in our school, so that's Evergreen Valley High School in San Jose. And in terms of businesses on the platform,